Now that we have a form for creating a new subject, we need to actually have something that's going to receive that form. And when we wrote our code for new subject, we went ahead and told the form that it should submit to create_subject.php. So let's create that page now. I'm going to do File, New, and we'll just do a quick save on this file to put it in the right place. Widget Corp, and it can go right here. Instead of new subject, though, it'll be create subject. So we'll save that in the root of Widget Corp. Now, there are two types of form receivers that we can have that will take our form and process them. We're going to look at one of those types now, and then we'll visit the other type a little later on. The first type is that we're going to have a page that's only going to do form processing. That's it. It's a processing page. And this page could live somewhere. We could have a folder called form processing, and that's what it could do. And a lot of developers like this approach and like to develop this way. And that's why I want to show it to you. I also think it'll make it clearer for you when we're starting out if we have both a form sender and a form receiver, and we can sort of separate those out. So let's go ahead and take our connection and functions, because those are going to be the same on this page. But this page won't output any HTML. So we aren't going to need to do anything about our navigation. We're not going to need to include our header, and we're not going to need anything that's in the rest of this, except that we're going to need to close our connection. We don't want to output any HTML, so we're going to have to do it the old-fashioned way, by hand. And we'll remember that that statement is MySQL close, and we just need to pass it the connection that we made. And that's the same thing that we had in our footer, included every other time. We're just doing it by hand. Now we're ready to start processing the form. So in our first pass at this, let's as quickly as possible just grab those post values and submit them to the database. And then we'll work on strategies to improve our code. So we'll do PHP, and then what values are we sending over here from our form? Let's take a look. We're sending over menu name, position, and visible. So we'll need to have something that'll catch menu name, and I'll go ahead and just drop to the next line, position, and visible. So that's what we're going to be looking for. And we know how to do those with the post array and ask it for menu name, semicolon. And I'll go ahead and just copy that to the next two lines and change those to position and visible. There we go. So now we've pulled those values out of the super global post array so that we can use them and work with them. Now we're ready to construct our submit. So I'm going to go ahead in a new block of PHP, just for clarity. I'm going to construct our query. Now I'm still going to call it a query because that's the way that we refer to it in MySQL, is that it's always a query no matter what we're doing. And I'm going to query the database with an insert command. And we learned these back in the MySQL section. We haven't used them with PHP yet, but the format of them is the same. And I'm going to put my open parentheses for that. White space isn't significant here, so I'm going to go ahead and drop down and put in the list of the fields that we're going to submit. We're going to have menu name, position, and visible. Now, I could also submit the ID, and I could submit the value of nothing to it, and it would then interpret that to insert it with the next auto-incremented value. I'm just going to leave it out, and that's what it'll do, because we told that to auto-increment the key. And then after that parentheses, I'll have values and another set of parentheses, and I'm going to need to have these match up exactly. For every argument that I've declared in the subjects, I'll need to have a matching value. So I'll do in-place substitution here for menu name and for position and for visible. I don't need a comma after the last visible. We're just going to close the parentheses down here, and a semicolon will wrap the whole thing up. Menu name is a string, and if you'll remember from when we were working with MySQL, strings need to be surrounded with single quotes. So there we go. We've got single quotes around it. Position, oops, I actually misspelled it here. Position and visible are going to be numbers. They're integers, and they don't need to have quotes around them. If we put quotes around them, it won't hurt anything. That's not a problem for MySQL. But strings absolutely must have single quotes around them. And these single quotes are going to be important, and we're going to talk more about them in a minute. So just keep that in mind. Single quotes go around strings. And I'm going to go ahead and put those curly braces around it as well. And the curly brace will go inside the quotes. And so we'll put our curly braces here. And one more here. We've successfully built a valid MySQL query. So let's go ahead and execute that query. And we do that with MySQL query, our query, and the connection, just like we did before. How do we test whether or not this succeeded? Well, if an insert succeeds, then it returns true. And if an insert fails, it returns false. So we can actually test whether this succeeded or not by wrapping it all inside of an if-then statement, just like this. Now I won't need this semicolon, but I'll instead need that. And if it succeeds, then we're going to have success. And we won't put anything in there for now. We'll just say success. And if not, then we need to do something else. So I'm going to say display error message. That's one example of what it could do. And let's go ahead and just put together a real simple error message. Let's say echo, and we'll put in p tags, subject creation failed. And we'll close our p tag, put a semicolon there, and then let's go ahead and echo back that MySQL error. Remember we saw how to do that earlier? I'll append that. There we go. And we'll put in MySQL error, and we'll return the error so that we could actually see it and see what the error was and why it didn't succeed. Now, an insert should succeed unless there was a problem with the database. So now let's look at what we want to do on success. So let's say that we've submitted over to this create subject page, and it puts the information into the database, and then it succeeds. Well, we have two choices. Either we can go on and display some information later on down this page, or we can use our redirection, and we can actually redirect to a new page. We remember we do that with headers. So we'll say header, location. In this case, let's say once it's created, we want to go back to content.php. So that will redirect us to content once it's successfully created. And of course, we also need the exit after it. Remember, that happens with all of the headers that we send. So we can go ahead and try this. We can see whether it works or not. Let's switch back over and let's add a subject. Let's make this one just be whatever, and I'll give it position number 4. And I'll say, yes, it should be visible. Add subject, and there it is. Whatever was created. And it returned us back to content.php. So this succeeded. And this is the basic process that you're going to go through for inserting records. We construct a query just the same. We run the MySQL query command, but we don't need to catch the result. Now we could say, if it makes you feel better, we could say result equals, and then we could have the result to test whether it's true or false, the same way we did before. If you like that better, then we'll go ahead and try that. Let's see if we just drop in result equals. And then if the result works, then we can do it. That's the same thing. I just wrote it as a slightly more condensed version. So if you like having result equals MySQL query and that makes you feel more comfortable, that's fine. But the end result is that we either redirect to another page or display an error message. And this could also redirect to another page here. There's no problem with that. So get familiar with this. Make sure that you understand it. This is how inserts work. This is how we create records. But it's not a very robust way of doing it. Because what if, for example, the post variables don't exist? What if no data came in? Or what if the menu name was too long? Or even more sinister, what if they put some characters in there that would mess with MySQL? We're going to talk about all of that in the next couple of movies.